Hello, Heights Church. Welcome to another Summit Up Devo. Pastor Justin here, and it is great to be with you. We're in Unite for Such a Time as This, and today I'm going to be talking about great faith, and specifically the great faith of Rahab. If you're not familiar with the story, it is found in Joshua chapter 2, where Joshua is sending spies into Jericho to spy out the land, to spy out the village, to see how the fortifications are. What does it look like? God's moving the people into the promised land at this point. In chapter 2, we pick up with Rahab hiding spies from the city and the people of Jericho so that they don't die. Now, what we know about her story is in the book of Hebrews, it actually tells us she had great faith because of this act. As I was preparing for this, I was talking with my wife, and she was actually talking to me about this story because she was going to be doing this Devo. And what happened is she kept seeing, I can't see beyond the fear that she had. And I want to read to you a passage out of her story, and then kind of unpack how fear and faith really go together. But it's from Joshua chapter 2. And I want to read to you verse 10, and this is Rahab speaking to the spies specifically. So she says this, "For we have heard how the Lord dried up the waters of the Red Sea before you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to the two kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon and Og, whom you devoted to destruction. And as soon as we heard it, our hearts melted, for there was no spirit left in any man because of you. For the Lord your God, he is God of heavens and the earth, heavens above and the earth below. Now please swear to me by the Lord that I have dealt kindly with you. I have also kindly with with you. You also deal kindly with my father's house." See, the thing about Rahab is it sounds as if she's reacting out of fear. But let's be honest, faith doesn't exist in an emotional vacuum. I can't have a response to a situation without having some kind of, like a situation comes up in my life that requires faith. A lot of times I'm going to be afraid. In Rahab's case, she'd heard the stories of what God had done for the Israelites. She had conquered, they had dried up the Red Sea, they had moved peoples across the wilderness. And she believed it, and that's a key. She believed it, and she trusted it, that God was going to do something. He was going to give the city of Jericho over to the Israelites because he's already done it somewhere else. See, here's the application for this, is that sometimes we come to a situation where we're afraid because we don't know the outcomes, but that's why bold faith is stepping in anyway. See, faith doesn't live in a vacuum. I remember there was a season in my life where I knew I was called to ministry. I knew that I was supposed to step into it, and so I started going back to school to get an education so I could get my Bible and theology degree, and I was scared. I didn't know what the next step was. And then Pastor Craig came to me, and this was many, many years ago, and he was going through chemo, and he said, "Hey, why don't you quit your job and come be an unpaid intern on staff?" See, I got to be honest. I was afraid because, you know what? That's a big step. I was working part-time doing a stay-at-home dad thing. I was taking care of my boy, and at that season, we needed some money to make ends meet, and I would be sacrificing this. And I needed to step in, though, and trust that God was going to provide. And you know what he did? He gave me a sponsor who said, I believe you're calling so much that I'm going to pay the little gap that you need so that you can go and be an unpaid intern at Heights Church. It required faith on my part. And I'll be honest, I was scared. See, faith and fear go together. If you're struggling, let's just say for a second that you're in this space right now where you're thinking, man, I want to give for the first time, but I'm afraid because I don't know if it's going to show up. I want to encourage you that it will. God will provide. It may not look like how you expect it, and that is a key. Sometimes God shows up in ways that blow our faith away because we didn't see it coming that way. But I want to encourage you, if that's you, step in, start, because God's going to be faithful. The simple truth is he's proved it in the past. See, that's what Rahab knew. Rahab had seen and heard these stories about the Israelites and God's faithfulness to them, and she knew that he was going to do it again. So even though there might have been fear on her part, either of her own kings or what the Israelites might do, she stepped out in faith, and that, my friends, is great faith. It is having fear and yet walking through it and trusting God anyway. Well, thanks so much for joining me, Heights Church. I pray that you have great faith in all that you do, in all the areas that God's calling you to, whether it's service or giving or any other thing that God's saying, hey, I want you to trust me in this. I pray that you do. Thanks so much for joining me. We'll see you next time.